Have you ever felt like you're not qualified enough to do the thing you love? Like you thought you need to be more fluent, more qualified, more confident, more ready, or living the dream to start living as the person you're becoming? I've been there. And that's what this video is really about. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you might remember that I spent my Christmas holiday last year in Paris. That time gave me a lot of inspiration, a lot to talk about. And this year I wasn't there. And for the moment, I let that silence make me doubt myself. And if you're new here, je m'appelle Rachel. Welcome to Rachel met Rachel en français. On this channel, I share my journey of learning French, exploring French culture. It's not a channel about being fluent or having it all figured out. It's about learning slowly, living intentionally, and trusting the process. This year, I haven't made as many videos as I did last year. It's not because I slowed down my French learning, or it's not because I stopped loving French culture. It's just because I started questioning myself. I didn't want to make videos that felt empty to me, and I didn't want to talk about French language or French culture that like it was something I was just describing instead of actually living it. And I guess somewhere in my mind I made a lot of assumptions about myself. Like maybe people would rather watch someone who is French talking about French culture or learn from a fully qualified French teacher. And because I wasn't living in France, I slowly started believing I had nothing valuable to add. I kind of underestimated myself just because my experience didn't like official enough. And somewhere along the way that turned into hesitation. I started asking myself questions like, do people really want to watch someone who doesn't live in France? Someone who isn't French? Someone who's still learning? And the more I asked these questions, the quieter I became. And there was also a reason I kind of procrastinating my video production. Those questions didn't come from the lack of passion to French culture or French language. They came from caring too much, from wanting to be real and not wanting to pretend. But here's what I slowly realized. Just because life looks quieter on the outside doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the biggest shifts happen where no one can see them. This year really felt like a step backwards to me. I mean, I wasn't physically in France. I didn't take any French exam which I thought I would. There was no big and visible milestone, nothing that looked impressive from the outside, so I kind of assumed that maybe I wasn't progressing this year. But that wasn't actually true. I think it's always good, especially towards the end of the year, to give yourself a bit of time to reflect, to look back and ask yourself, did I do enough this year? But I realized something. We're very good at filling our diaries and not very good at giving ourselves space. Because without big things happening, I suddenly had a lot more quiet time. And it was only when my schedule finally emptied out that I actually had the time to sit with myself and really listen to what my inner voice was trying to say. So I started asking deeper questions like, what is my real passion really? Why am I learning French in the first place? What does fluency actually mean to me? Like, in 10 or 20 years, if I'm fluent in French finally, what kind of life do I actually see myself living? Will I be living in France? How do I make this love for French culture feel real in my everyday life? So this year wasn't really a step backwards. It was more like a pause and also a kind of progress in another way. Progress in understanding myself and trusting myself. And sometimes, isn't it, that pause is where things finally settle because it makes you more certain about what you want and who you want to become. I used to think progress only counted when there is something big happening. For example, traveling, immersion, exams, new experiences, great result in exams. This was the year I really learned how I learn. I stopped chasing intensity. Those long, exhausting study sessions. And I started choosing sustainability in learning. So instead of trying to do everything at once, I broke learning down into really small, gentle moments, like 10 minutes of listening while making breakfast, or reading a short French blog instead of opening a grammar book. Sometimes it was just repeating one sentence until it felt natural. That's what I mean by micro-learning as introduced in the book Atomic Habits. I also started tracking these habits. Nothing fancy, just enough to stay aware. I talk about this shift in one of my previous videos, which is called Why I Stopped Aiming for a Profession in French. And honestly, that mindset change made a huge difference to me. And something unexpected happened. Even though I wasn't physically in France this year, I'm so surprised and impressed that my French literally improved so much this year. I spoke more naturally, and for the first time, my French teacher, as well as another French native person that I knew recently, told me that they understood me well when I spoke in French. That had never happened before. Even though I was in France speaking French, the locals would sometimes roll their eyes and speak to me in English, which made me feel a bit discouraged, And in that moment when I was told that my French speaking was well understood, and I realized, a lot of people talk about manifestation or the law of attraction, and I actually believe in it deeply, but not in a magical, just wish for it kind of way. For me, manifestation has always shown up in very ordinary moments, like the way I choose to spend 10 minutes with French instead of waiting for a perfect study session, or choosing to speak even when my French isn't perfect. That's when things started to change. I didn't progress because I forced myself. I progressed because I stopped waiting to be someone else. I stopped telling myself that I'll do this when I'm becoming more fluent, when I'm more qualified, or when I have more confidence, or when I'm more ready. And I started showing up who I already was, a French learner, a curious person, someone who genuinely loves the language and the culture. This is what manifestation really means to me. It's not about sitting there and waiting for your dream life to come. It's about living today in alignment with the person you believe you're becoming. So instead of asking, when will I be fluent? I started asking, how will someone who trusts her French show up today? And then I did it.
Bonjour, nous avons conduit pour 4 heures et nous sommes à Manchester maintenant. Mon mari visitera un client et nous irons aussi aller au marché de Noël à Manchester ce soir. Donc nous passerons la nuit ici. Il y a beaucoup de pluie à Manchester aujourd'hui. Vous écoutez? Vous entendez de pluie? Il fait très gris.
Manifestation to me is a series of small choices, like speaking even when you're not sure, learning in a way that respects your energy, continuing even when there's no applause, not because you've arrived, but because this is who you are, and trusting that life will catch up. Maybe you're a French learner who's worrying that you're not making enough progress. Or maybe you're a YouTuber or a creator who is a bit discouraged about how few views you've got from the last video you've made. Or maybe you're a dreamer, someone who loves French culture and quietly hopes that one day maybe you'll live in France. What I want you to trust is that if you really want it and you genuinely believe in yourself, you eventually make it. That's how manifestation actually works. And this video, this channel, is me showing you my journey as someone in Hong Kong now living in the UK with no French background growing up, apart from a few months studying in France, still learning, still becoming, but choosing to pursue my dream of being fluent in French, not just to speak the language, but to live the culture, bring the mindsets, the values, and the art of living into my everyday life. And I realized something important. If I admire this culture enough, why would I wait to live in France to start living this way? I don't need to wait to be there to think differently, to live more intentionally, to slow down, to appreciate, and to choose beauty in everyday life. So, no, I'm not living in France right now, but I'm already living with the values that drew me to France in the first place, and that's enough to keep going. If you love French culture, and if you're learning the language, but you keep telling yourself you're not good enough yet, not fluent enough, not confident enough, not qualified enough, I want you to know this. Hesitation doesn't mean that you're incapable. Most of the time, it just means that you care. And as long as you take one step forward, you're making progress. I don't live in France right now. I'm still learning, and I'm choosing to continue anyway, because I don't need to wait to live this part of my life. Trust the pause, trust yourself, and keep going. Oh, and last week I also applied for a Saturday Express course from Institut Français. in London. For the first time, learning French felt integrated into my life instead of squeezing into it. And I'll be sharing that experience in my upcoming videos. So if you're curious about how I fit learning into a busy mom's life without burning out, you're in the right place. Please continue watching. À bientôt!